For decades, millions of people have come here in search of the American dream. But for many, that dream is quickly disappearing.
Are you unemployed or stuck in a dead-end job?
Thousands of people are losing their jobs every day.
Are you homeless or living in a bad neighborhood?
Unemployment shot up to its highest level in nearly 26 years.
If the American dream broke its promise to you, don't worry. We have an answer.
The reason why I chose to take the point of view of the dealer is because that story has not been told. Maybe it's told in fiction, but it's never told in nonfiction. And there's a great book, History of the United States by Howard Zinn, and I read that book and I thought this would be a great approach to take in making a documentary film. When you think about a war on drugs, you really have to think about two completely different problems. One problem is addiction and drug abuse. And then there's another problem, which is called the war on drugs. And the war on drugs creates a whole set of problems that are completely different from addiction and abuse. So all I was trying to do in the film was make that distinction for people. Because I think that what the propaganda says is that by having a SWAT team come and break your house down and try to find that little marijuana, that's going to save your children from the dangers of drug addiction. In reality, that's going to traumatize your children, and that's going to ruin your house. So the purpose of separating the film that way is to actually start to make that distinction for the audience, for people who don't know that.
They say, let me help you help yourself. I'm gonna give you 3.5 grams. You know what to do with this? Because if you know what to do with it, you're gonna be all right.
I'm a grown man. These motherfuckers can't tell me what I can and can't do.
I don't know anybody who said I'm not going to get high because I might go to jail. No one says that.
To clarify, 50 Cent used to deal drugs. Eminem never dealt drugs. He was an addict of pills. And did they testify easily? Absolutely. They were both very forthcoming in telling their stories, and we're very grateful for that.
Our experts are going to give you everything you need.
Yeah, it takes me like 4 hours to make $4,000.
In a year, you could be making easily 6 figures.
In Compton, the average income was probably $24,000 a year. You make $300,000-$400,000 in a day.
The reality is that in the United States, on the street, people who are in the drug dealing world call it the game. So that is literally what it's called. They call it the game. And the drug game is absurd. So I'm pointing out that absurdity by having video game sound effects. That video game itself is created by the drug laws. So if we think that there is some moral imperative here, which I agree that there is, the moral imperative is to end the war on drugs. My message is to say, let's decriminalize drugs, and let's create a debate around it. But I would say absolutely to decriminalize, 100%. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see the Coca-Cola Corporation marketing heroin to young children. And I think that, you know, before somebody says, oh, that's absurd, that would never happen, in my country, in the United States, we allow pharmaceutical advertising. And we're the one of only 2 countries in the world that allows for advertising of pharmaceuticals. So I think it's important to make that distinction.
Government, they don't want you to use your drugs, they want you to use their drugs.
So what did law enforcement do? We developed the cases, we got the informants, we did the search warrants, we did the wiretaps. We took down these big organizations. We didn't take the money out of it. So what happened? All the wonderful little entrepreneurs said, now it's my time.
I don't want to be like Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson. I want to be like Freeway Rick.
My name is Freeway Rick Ross. Pretty much every day I could do $1 million worth of drugs. There was days that I would go to $2 and $3 million.
You gotta let these kids know what the rules are. Oh, come on, it's marijuana. You're not gonna bust me for this, are you? It's illegal.
Yes, well, in the United States, we have a very, very sad statistic, and the U.S. is #1. USA #1. USA loves to say how they're #1. The U.S. is indeed #1 in having the largest prison population that the world has ever seen. There are 2.3 million people inside the prison system in the U.S. at any given time, 8 million that are under parole or under some other capacity by the criminal justice system. This is completely unheard of. There are more African Americans in jail than there were proportionally or numerically than they were in South Africa under apartheid. I mean, it is a national travesty, and it's a crisis, and it's partially due to the war on drugs. Well, the French audience is going to be particular to France, and I wouldn't group all of Europe together. Just I wouldn't necessarily do that. I mean, the French situation is very interesting because the violence in the black market is not necessarily to the extent that it is in the United States, but it's also not as present. However, there is, and I'm not an expert in French politics at all, but what I think is interesting is that 70% of the prison population in France is Muslim. And that is not representative of what the actual demographic of the French population is. And I'm sure that plenty of those Muslims are incarcerated on drug charges. So I would suggest and be interested in the French opinion on that.
Look around. This is the environment of post-industrial America. The work has gone away. The only factory that remains is the drug trade. And they're hiring. They're the only people hiring.
Alcohol and cigarettes were legalized, and then they're marketed. So the marketing is part of what makes them so popular. Alcohol was already popular prior to the marketing, but cigarettes, for example, I think it was around the women's suffrage movement in the United States, some marketing guys got together and they said, you know what we should do is we should call cigarettes torches of freedom, and we should advertise cigarettes as being a symbol of women's liberation, that a woman can be as tough and strong as a man. So they set up this marketing plan, and women did this huge march for women's right to vote in the United States, and all the women in the front row had cigarettes, and they're smoking them. And that went out across all these newspapers, and all these stories came out, and of course the next day any woman who felt like they wanted to show men that they were equal was smoking a cigarette. So this is the danger of marketing. At the same time, on the other side, we know that by making advertising illegal, limiting smoking in public places, and disseminating a lot of education to children about the dangers of smoking, cigarette usage diminishes. So this is a model on what we can do to help people so that they don't consume drugs. At the end of the day, I don't believe that government should be legislating morality through the use of the military. That is the job of a fascist state. So we have something to learn from cigarettes and alcohol as to what to do, and we have something to learn as to what not to do.
In this 90-minute program, masters of the trade are going to reveal to you their secrets on how to get paid in this exciting $400 billion global industry.
We might as well take out billboards in the inner city saying,
"You want to know how to make money selling drugs?